We are here with Bill Miller, who is the CEO of the American Gaming Association, which is also our host at G2E, which promises this year, Bill, from what I can gather, to be a really highly energized show.
Yeah, no, first, thank you for having me on. I always look forward to this as a part of G2E. I agree with you. I think that this is going to be the best show we've ever had. And I said this last year, that we were just coming out of COVID last year. And we had, well, it wasn't quite to the same level as 2019. We just missed it by a little. I think this year is going to be the best show ever. And in part because obviously we went through this terrible thing, COVID, and everybody did globally. But one of the things we were still missing last year was some international travel and some business travel. And I think that now that these businesses have they're on solid footing, and particularly, and we'll talk about this in a couple minutes, our industry, we got hit in the face and worked our way through it, came out on the other side, and now you're seeing full teams coming from regional properties, full teams coming from tribal properties, full teams coming from new markets like Japan and Brazil and others that are moving towards gaming. And we saw little bits of that last year, but we're seeing really significant numbers this year.
Well, that's kind of a good lead-in really to the freshest topic, which is your report, the American Gaming Association's report on the impact of this industry. So what kind of highlights would you like to share?
Well, thanks for teeing that up. This is really the second time we've done this report. The last one was 2018, so it was pre-pandemic. And so we said, this is a really important time to revisit what does the industry look like from an economic perspective. And some of the numbers are really quite remarkable. And that is that our industry contributes about $329 billion in economic impact. And we support 1.8 million jobs across the country. And to give you some sense of scale of that, that's larger than the U.S. Postal Service. It's larger than the aviation industry. And so what it shows is that we're continuing to grow in communities all over the country. And then what it also means is, that 1.8 million in jobs equates to $104 billion in salaries in terms of wages and salaries. And so you just think about what that means as it ripples across the economy. It means that we are a mainstream entertainment option, not just here, although here we are in Las Vegas and this is the epicenter still of the gaming world, but we're seeing it all across the country.
One of the things that we've seen a few years ago, gaming belonged to gaming companies. And one of the things that was generally considered is that a lot of the other companies, technology companies and so on, would not be interested in entering gaming because of the intrusiveness of the licensing process and those kinds of things. But we're seeing a big shift. I mean, you've got a company, we'll use Disney as an example, which used to wage war against gaming in Florida.
Yep.
And now Disney is a gaming company when you consider ESPN. What do these kinds of economic impacts tell you about, and you used the word mainstream, about this sort of integration of gaming into the larger economy?
Well, I think it is important, and what we've seen, as you mentioned, it's evolution, right? I mean, look, this industry has a very colorful starting point, right? Teamster money and the mob, and and all these things. But this is, it's not quite centuries ago, but in kind of the world in which we live today, it might as well be centuries ago, because modern day gaming in America, whether it's brick and mortar, whether it's online, whether it's sports betting, whether it's the machines and the technology that is the underpinning of all of these things, we are every bit as edgy on the technology side as any other business in the world. And what we've seen is people that had maybe they said, gaming, that's not for me, or that's not for my town, or it's not for my industry, or the sports leagues and the teams that kind of all opposed sports betting until PASPA was overturned. And then now, as you mentioned, Disney, not only Disney, because of ESPN, but now ESPN as a direct partner with Penn Entertainment, right? So the evolution is quite remarkable in a pretty short period of time in some respects. But then I think about, and I talk to leaders in the gaming industry all the time, and the guys that are the designers of both iGaming as well as the machines, they're seeing the people that used to go work for, like EA Sports or something like that. Someone who is building, building a new video game or those sorts of things. Those guys, they run those designers. They run them hard until they develop the game, and then they cut them all loose. And so we have seen people, our industry, being able to recruit talent from, kind of adjacent technology, and that would have been unheard of. You're in Silicon Valley, and now you're going to move into the gaming space because of the opportunities. That has been an incredible way for us to even further mainstream the industry.
If you were to take your crystal ball out
Yep.
and look ahead 3 to 5 years, what will the gaming industry be like?
I think it will continue to be a further mainstreamed industry. I think certainly we're seeing, rather remarkably since COVID, which was kind of this, new level set, right? We had an existential moment, and you had a number of people that were in the industry that maybe had taken a view of brick and mortar exists, and that's the backbone of the industry. And by the way, it still is, and it's still doing remarkably well. But when COVID happened, all of them had to shut down. And so they all had digital properties, and they all utilized those digital properties. And now that we're out of COVID, and now that we've seen a couple of years, what we're seeing is this omni-channel dynamic where the people that used to think, well, I don't want to be Barnes & Noble, a former bookstore, now Amazon. And so what we're seeing is increased, symbiotic relationship between, iGaming, digital, mobile, and the experience that can't be replicated, which is the in-person experience. And so I think we will see continued, it will be more of that. And at the end of the day, what we are is a great way to have fun, and a way to, obviously responsibly, and the underpinnings of the industry are built on that, on our responsible commitment to customers, because at the end of the day, we've seen what that looks like in other jurisdictions around the world when the industry is predatory or is looking to make a buck.
So let's talk a little bit then about responsible gaming. Is the industry doing enough? Is there more that should be done? Are there changes ahead that perhaps policy changes, regulatory, legislative changes to prepare for?
Well, I think that number one, the responsible gaming and problem gambling has never been better funded than it is today. There's never been more focus on it, but there's always room to do more, and always a need to do better, and need to do more and need to do better in a world that we talk about. Where's the academic research? How can we fund more of it? How can we better understand what are the triggers for people that, although it's a very small number, that might have a problem with gaming and gambling? And so we want to make sure that we're utilizing the best technology. There was a gathering, whatever it's now, 20 or so years ago in Reno, where they brought together the best minds in the industry, leaders in the industry, leaders from Harvard, medical and clinicians, to kind of better understand responsibility, and then adopted a blueprint for that for the primarily brick and mortar world. obviously we're in a more, it's a much more dynamic industry. And so we're doing that, and we're making strides there, but I really think that the next level of responsibility comes from better understanding the player and how to make sure that the player is having fun.
A minute ago, you had mentioned that this industry is as edgy technologically as any other. Technology also has its hazards, and one of the things that we've seen has become front and center is cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what the industry is doing or should be doing, perhaps more or better in terms of cybersecurity.
Well, look, it's always a race. You know, the good, you know, businesses and governments are racing against people that are bad, and the people that are bad are smart, and the people that are trying to you know, steal your data, and they are, you know, they are looking to do that at the highest levels of government. I mean, the Pentagon's been breached before, right? Corporations are routinely being held up by hackers and asked to create ransom demands in order to, you know, not push this data out into the dark web and those sorts of things. And so, look, our industry is no different from, from the Pentagon or from other entities within corporate America, but I will say that our industry is also very heavy in the tech space and in the protection of data because of how we're regulated. And those regulators have specific demands, and I think that, you know, when we talk about the issues around AML and money laundering and those sorts of things, you know, if you had the director of FinCEN up here who's, you know, in charge of making sure that, you know, that this industry is paying attention to those sorts of things, what you'd hear is that we are a model industry as it relates to, money, AML, and those sorts of things. And when you get to, you know, breaches, our industry is very strong in this space, but we are we're not immune to the sorts of situations that other businesses have found themselves.
Yeah, I think we discussed it in a different interview. I think it was James Made of GLI, and he talked about all the things that the industry is doing in terms of penetration drills and other things to discover things. And he said, you know, the truth is you're always vigilant and you're always adopting new ways to protect yourself. But the other truth is you always got bad guys out there who are doing the same thing.
I think that's I mean, it's a cat and mouse game, and you know, the reality is the people that are, you know, we have to get it right every time. They only have to get it right one time, and if they get it right one time, then they're able to, you know, make a lot of money. And so, you know, vigilance is the key word, and I think it is something that our industry takes quite seriously.
Also on the technology front, a couple of years ago, maybe even a year ago, there was this almost science fiction term that today is a buzzword, and that's artificial intelligence. How does that play out in the gaming industry?
Well, I think it's early to say, right? I think that one of the things that our industry has been able to be quite successful at is utilization of databases in order to create loyalty programs and player rewards. And so, you know, anytime you have big data sets and you're able to process those data sets in a more efficient manner, there's certainly, you know, significant upside. You know, and there's also significant upside in terms of, you know, looking at responsibility and looking at what are the potential tendencies of someone, if there are, who might have a problem with gaming and gambling. And so, look, I think that AI is going to be important, certainly in the industry in terms of, in the same way it is in other industries, making some of the data processing more faster, more efficient, but it will also give insights into behavior. And I think that that's a really important development that we've just kind of scratched the surface of.
Okay. Well, we've covered some major issues. Any others out there, Bill, that you'd like to address?
Well, I would say that, you know, from a prioritization, you know, we talked a lot about responsibility. I think the other part of responsibility is for us at the AGA is the illegal market and the fact that as our industry continues to become more mainstream and become more available in more jurisdictions around the country, whether it be brick and mortar, mobile, sports betting, iGaming, that we get law enforcement and policymakers and regulators to really look at the other side of this, which is what existed before the legal regulated market, right. The illegal, unregulated market that has no consumer protections. And so whether it's these skill machines in places like Pennsylvania and North Carolina and Virginia and other places where you plug them into the wall and they operate just like a slot machine and they pay out, but they don't pay any taxes and they don't have any consumer protections. And you're putting them in a convenience store where now there's more risk, and it's a massive number. I mean, it's it's $500 billion in lost regulated gaming money. And so we want policymakers to pay attention to that from a consumer protection perspective. I just talked about, we've just seen 10 consecutive quarters of growth in our industry. And so we're doing fine and we're doing well. But when you see continued growth, both in the offshore online illegal business and these kind of almost legal lookalikes, that's problematic because those people don't face licensure. They don't face the scrutiny of regulation. They don't pay taxes. And they don't really create any economic activity that is positive to the communities in which they operate. And so, we focus on that a lot, and it is not an easy battle, but it's one that we take on every day very seriously.
Sure, and I've talked to people who have made bets online, who've opened up accounts, and they never realized that the account they were operating with was illegal.
Yeah. Oh, I think that people think that, if you can Google it and it pops up and then you can deposit, you can use your credit card and you can do it, then it must be legal, right? I mean, that's what our research, when we did the research around the illegal market, was most people thought they were betting legally. And then,
right.
People have criticized the fact that, the sports betting companies have advertised a lot. But that advertising moved people from the illegal market into the legal protected market. And so, and then as people realized that they were in the legal market, they were pleased about it. They were happy about it. And they knew, man, I didn't even know that I was in the illegal market, but I'm happy that there is something that, number one, if I win, I'm going to be paid. And two, if these are companies that are regulated, and so they have to operate at a high level and with integrity, and that's really important.
Okay. Well, on that note, Bill, thank you very much. It's informative as always.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much.